The call came at 7:43 on a Tuesday morning, and the woman on the other end did not say hello. She said, "Is this Carol Whitfield?" I said yes. She said, "This is Sandra Pruitt at First Regional Bank on Elm Street. We have a flag on your account tied to a property transfer. There's a quitclaim deed on file that was recorded yesterday at the county clerk's office. It names you as the grantor." I didn't understand what she meant. I was standing in my kitchen in scrubs, coffee in hand, 40 minutes from the start of my shift at Street Catherine's. I said, "I'm sorry, what property?" She paused. "The property at 1140 Briarcroft Lane. The deed transfers full ownership to a Derek Whitfield, my brother." I set my coffee down very carefully on the counter because I knew if I didn't do something deliberate with my hands, I would drop it. "When was this filed?" "Yesterday at 4:18 p.m. I had been at work yesterday at 4:18 p.m. I had been checking a patient's oxygen levels in room 214. I had not signed anything. I had not been to any office. I had not spoken to any attorney or notary or real estate agent. I said, "I did not sign that deed." Sandra Pruitt was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I was afraid of that. That's why I called. I want you to understand what 1140 Briarcroft Lane meant to me. It wasn't just a house. It was the house my mother had lived in for 31 years. The house where she kept a garden in the backyard, even when her knees made it hard to kneel. The house where she died 14 months ago, in the bedroom at the end of the hall, with me holding her left hand and a photograph of my father on the nightstand beside her. She left it to me. It was in her will, filed properly with her attorney, probated without dispute. My brother had been at the reading. He had sat across from me with his wife, Renee, and he had not said a word when the attorney read my name. I had thought that meant he accepted it. I had been wrong about that. I called in to the hospital. I told my charge nurse I had a family emergency. She asked if everything was okay, and I said no, but I would explain later. Then I sat down at my kitchen table with a notepad and I started writing down everything Sandra Pruitt had told me, because I had learned a long time ago as a nurse that when things go wrong, you document first and panic later. The deed was filed at 4:18 p.m. the previous day. It named me as grantor. It named my brother Derek as grantee. It had a notary stamp on it. And according to the county record Sandra had pulled, it had been signed by someone using my name. I did not scream. I did not call my brother. I did not get in my car and drive to his house. I called an attorney. Her name was Patricia Odom. I had her number from when she helped me through my mother's probate. She picked up on the third ring, and I told her everything in about 90 seconds. She asked me 3 questions. Did I sign anything in the past 30 days? No. Did I give anyone power of attorney? No. Did I have the original deed showing my name as owner after probate? Yes, in a fireproof box in my closet. Patricia said, "Do not contact your brother. Do not post anything. Pull that original deed out right now and photograph every page. Then call me back." I did exactly that. When I called her back, she told me what we were dealing with. A quitclaim deed is one of the simplest real estate documents in existence. It transfers whatever interest the signer holds in a property to another party. It doesn't require a title search. It doesn't require proof of clear ownership. It just requires a signature and a notary. Which means if someone forges your signature convincingly enough and finds a notary willing to stamp it, they can file it at the county clerk's office, and it becomes part of the public record. Patricia said, "Someone gambled that you wouldn't find out quickly enough to stop it." I thought about the timing. My brother knew I worked long shifts. He knew I worked Mondays. He had filed that deed on a Monday afternoon, late enough that the county office would close before the end of business. He had counted on me not knowing until it was done. What he had not counted on was Sandra Pruitt. She told me later, when I came into the bank in person that afternoon, that she had flagged it because the address was connected to a mortgage inquiry from 6 months ago that had never been completed. When the deed came through, she cross-referenced it, and something felt off to her. She said, "I've been doing this for 22 years. I know what a transaction looks like when someone's rushing." I thanked her in a way I hope she understood was real. Patricia had already gotten on the phone with the county clerk's office by the time I reached the bank. She told me to request a certified copy of the filed deed in person. I did. I sat in the clerk's office on a hard wooden chair and waited while a woman with reading glasses made a copy of the document that someone had used to try to steal my house. I looked at the signature on that deed for a long time. It said Carol Whitfield in looping cursive, my name written by someone who was not me. I knew my own handwriting. I had written it 10,000 times on medical charts and birthday cards and grocery lists. The loops were wrong. The W didn't connect the way mine did. It was a practiced forgery, not a careless one, but it was a forgery. The notary stamp read Vivian Marsh, commission number 48371, County of Harlan. I photographed both pages on my phone before I left the building. Patricia called me while I was walking back to my car. She said she had spoken to a contact at the county clerk's office and confirmed that the deed was now flagged pending investigation. She had also filed an emergency motion to void the transfer based on fraud and forgery. She said, "This isn't going to be resolved today, but we are moving." I asked her what I should do in the meantime. She said, "Go home. Get every piece of paper related to that property. The original will, the probate order, the deed from probate, every tax statement, every utility bill with your name on it. Put it all in order. And Carol, don't tell your brother what you know yet." That was the hardest part. I drove past his street on the way home. Not on purpose. His house was 2 blocks off my usual route, and I took the turn before I thought about it, and then I was driving slowly past the brick rancher he shared with Renee and their 2 boys. His truck was in the driveway. The garage door was open. I could see him through the gap, standing at a workbench doing something I couldn't make out. He looked ordinary. He looked like my brother. I kept driving. At home, I pulled the fireproof box from the closet shelf and spread everything across my dining room table. The original will, dated 3 years before my mother died, notarized by her attorney. The probate order from the court, stamped and certified, naming me as sole heir to the property at 1140 Briarcroft Lane. The deed issued after probate, transferring ownership to me, signed by the county recorder. Property tax statements for the past 14 months, all in my name, all showing me as the owner of record, utility bills, homeowner's insurance, everything. I organized it chronologically and photographed every page. Then I sat on my couch for a while in the quiet. I thought about the last time my brother and I had really talked. It was at Christmas, 5 months after our mother's funeral. He had brought it up casually, the way people bring up things they've been thinking about for a long time. He said the house was just sitting there. He said I should think about selling. He said the market was good and the money could help both of us. I told him I wasn't ready to sell. I told him I was still going through her things. He had looked at me with an expression I hadn't been able to name at the time, and then he had changed the subject. I could name it now. It was calculation. I thought about what the house was worth. The neighborhood had changed in 30 years. Briarcroft Lane backed up against a creek that someone had turned into a walking trail, and a developer had been buying up lots in the surrounding blocks for 2 years. I had gotten an unsolicited letter 6 months ago offering me $420,000. I had not responded to it. I wondered now whether my brother had. I called Patricia back and told her about the developer's letter. She said, "That's motive. Save that letter." I found it in a folder in my filing cabinet. It was from a company called Meridian Property Group. I photographed it and sent it to Patricia's office email. The next 3 days were the strangest I had ever lived through. I went to work. I ate meals. I slept in short stretches. I did not call my brother. Once, he called me, and I let it go to voicemail. He said, "Hey, just checking in. Give me a call when you get a chance." His voice was completely normal. I listened to it twice, trying to find something I could put a name to. And then I saved the recording. Patricia filed the fraud complaint with the county sheriff's office on Wednesday. She also sent a formal notice to Vivian Marsh, the notary on the forged deed, advising her that her commission number had been used on a fraudulent document and that a legal investigation was underway. On Thursday morning, Vivian Marsh called Patricia's office directly. Patricia called me from her car, which meant she was driving and the news was too important to wait until she reached her desk. She said, "The notary is cooperating." I pulled over on the side of the road because I was in my car on my way to the grocery store and I did not trust my driving in that moment. Vivian Marsh had a mobile notary business. She worked out of a home office and did signings for individuals and small real estate transactions. My brother had contacted her through an online listing 3 weeks earlier. He had told her he needed a deed signed for a family property transfer. He told her the other party, the grantor, had mobility issues and would be signing remotely using a scanned image of her signature. Vivian had told Patricia that remote notarization required specific procedures and she hadn't been entirely comfortable with the setup, but he had told her it was a simplified intra-family transaction and paid her twice her standard rate. She had made a mistake. She knew it. She wanted to correct it. The record she had kept of the transaction, because mobile notaries are required to keep transaction journals, included the date, the client name, the property address, and the fee paid. It included a note that the grantor signature had been provided as a scanned image rather than in person. It included my brother's full name, Derek Allen Whitfield, and his phone number. Patricia said, "Her journal entry is evidence. Combined with your documented alibi from the hospital time-stamped records showing you were on shift, we have a very strong case." I asked her what happened next. She said the sheriff's investigator had already been in contact with the county clerk's office and had pulled the filing. She said she expected a warrant within 48 hours. She said I should be prepared for things to move quickly, and that when they did, I should not speak to my brother without her present. I said I understood. I asked her something I had been turning over for 3 days. I said, "Did he think I just wouldn't notice?" Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think he thought by the time you noticed, the property would already be sold. A quitclaim deed can move fast if someone's motivated. Meridian Property Group makes cash offers that close in 3 weeks. If he had gotten to them quickly enough, the house might have been sold and the money gone before you had legal standing to recover it." I sat in my parked car on the side of the road and let that settle in me. My mother's house, the garden, the bedroom at the end of the hall, gone in 3 weeks, turned into a number in my brother's bank account because he needed money and he had decided the house was his to take. I thought about the letter he had left on my voicemail, his ordinary voice, his "how are you" tone. I thought about my mother. I put the car in drive and went to the grocery store because I still had to eat dinner and because falling apart in a parking lot wasn't going to help me. The warrant came through on a Friday. Patricia called me at 6 in the morning and said, "They're picking him up today." I asked how she knew. She said she had a contact in the sheriff's department who had given her a heads up as a courtesy because she had been cooperating fully with the investigation since day one. I went to work. I told myself I would get through the shift without checking my phone, and I made it to noon before I stepped into the staff bathroom and looked. There was a text from Patricia that said, "Done. He was taken in this morning. Arraignment scheduled." There was a missed call from Renee, my sister-in-law. No voicemail. There was nothing from my brother. I splashed cold water on my face and went back to my patients. The arraignment was the following week. Patricia went with me. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, which made everything feel more immediate than I was ready for. I sat in a row of hard benches and watched my brother walk in wearing a suit I recognized from our mother's funeral. He looked at me once, just once, from across the room, before he turned back to his attorney. I didn't look away. The charges were 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of deed fraud, and 1 count of attempted theft of property valued over $100,000. His attorney entered a not guilty plea. The judge set bail and scheduled a preliminary hearing. It was not over. Legal things almost never end in a single room on a single day. But the deed transfer had been voided by court order 3 days earlier, and my name was back on the title to 1140 Briarcroft Lane, and that was the part that mattered to me in that moment. Walking out of the courthouse, I noticed the light was doing something specific to the oak trees along the front walk. The kind of afternoon light that makes the leaves look like they're lit from inside. I stopped for a moment just to look at it. Patricia was talking about the preliminary hearing schedule, and I held up one finger and she stopped. And I just stood there for a second in that light. She waited. She's good like that. In the weeks that followed, I started going through my mother's house room by room. Finally, the way I should have done 14 months earlier. I found her recipe box in the kitchen cabinet and sat on the floor reading her handwritten cards for an hour. I found a photograph in her nightstand drawer I had never seen before, her and my father at what looked like a state fair, young and laughing, his arm around her shoulder. I put it in a frame on my mantle at home. My brother's attorney reached out to Patricia about a possible plea arrangement. I told Patricia to proceed, however, the law directed. That wasn't bitterness. It was just truth. I had put the decision about consequences where it belonged, which was with the court and not with me. Vivienne Marsh lost her notary commission pending the outcome of the investigation. She had made a mistake and she had admitted it and cooperated, and I didn't feel satisfaction at her situation, only a kind of tired clarity about the fact that shortcuts have weight. The thing nobody tells you about being betrayed by a family member is that the grief doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in small pieces, at inconvenient times. I was in line at the pharmacy and I saw a display of those hard peppermint candies my mother always kept in a dish on her coffee table, and I had to step out of line and stand near the greeting cards for a minute. I was watching a basketball game and someone on screen looked just enough like my brother from a distance that I had to turn the television off. These things happen. I don't think there's a way around them. What I had was the house. On a Sunday in late October, I went there with cleaning supplies and a full Saturday's worth of hours. I washed the windows. I swept the porch. I pruned back the rose bushes in the garden that had gotten unruly since my mother stopped being there to tend them. They had good bones, those roses. They just needed someone to pay attention. I sat on the back step when the work was done, in the last hour of afternoon light, and I looked at what she had built. A yard, a garden, a row of stones along the flower bed that she had placed herself, one by one, because she said a garden needed a border or it would just wander. She had been right about a lot of things. I thought about what I wanted the house to be going forward, not a decision I had to make that day, not something with a deadline or an offer letter or a form to sign, just a question I could sit with, in my own time, in my own house, in the yard my mother planted. The court process would take months. My brother would face whatever consequences the law assigned to him, and I would attend the hearings I needed to attend and answer the questions I needed to answer, and then I would come home. I had the original deed. I had the probate order. I had the tax records and the utility bills and the voicemail and the developer letter and the notary's transaction journal. I had a paper trail that told the truth clearly and completely, because paper doesn't have reasons to lie. My mother had taught me that, in her way. She kept every receipt, every contract, every letter that mattered. She kept them in a fireproof box on the closet shelf, and she showed me where it was when I turned 30, and she said, "The papers protect you when people won't." I hadn't understood it then the way I understood it now. I locked up the house. I walked to my car in the dark with the smell of the garden still on my hands. I sat for a moment before I started the engine. Then I drove home. If you've ever had someone use your trust as a tool against you, you know that the hardest part isn't the legal fight. The legal fight has steps. It has a direction. You make one call, then the next, then the next. The hardest part is the quiet afterward, when the emergency is over and you're left with the shape of what your family actually was versus what you had believed it to be. I don't have a clean ending for that part. I don't think there is one. What I have is a house with good bones and a garden that needs attention, and a fireproof box on my closet shelf with every document that belongs to me, organized and dated and photographed. That's enough. Most days, that is enough. If you've gone through something like this, a family member who decided something you loved was theirs to take, tell me about it in the comments. I read every one. And if you're in the middle of it right now, the first call you make should be to an attorney. Not a confrontation, not a social media post. An attorney. The papers protect you. Make sure you have them.